I came upon this name, it just popped into my head, and it felt so appropriate. And I had all sorts of connections with it. I have a vision of something that changes, that has a different face, that's a bit amorphous somehow. And I liked it, and I like the sound of it. And I guess people will make of it what they will, and that's the way I feel about it. Medusa is a strong title for a record. That's how there's a female entity in there somewhere that I like. I don't see the need to recreate the original. This is not interesting at all. Nobody's going to be inspired by that. And I just wanted to take things and reinterpret them, which is hopefully what we'll have done successfully. But again, you know, when you are a musician and you're making music, you put it out into the marketplace and people will love it or hate it. And I'm yet to find out how they're going to feel about this. What we've done here is a very eclectic mix of songs, and they've been chosen for their own particular qualities and not for their commercial potential or anything to do with that at all. Just simply an emotive choice. And they all seem to have some kind of connection, strangely enough, when you actually put them together. And that's just that probably the connection is that I'm attracted to them for their what it is for their qualities. It was actually written by a man called David Freeman, and he formed a group called Lover Speaks. There were 2 people in the group at the time that I knew David. It's quite a few years ago. And for me this was a fantastic song. I'd known it for, well, I think he wrote it probably something like maybe 8 or 10 years ago now. And I always thought it was released. It probably made a sort of mild murmur in the charts, but I don't think it ever really became a hit. And you know, there are a lot of songs, well, not that many, but there are a few songs that are floating around that should have been, well, they should have touched the consciousness of the nation, if you like. They should have made their mark. And this should have done that. And I thought, well, it might be, I might be sticking my neck out to do this, but I really wanted to try to get that vehicle across, to use this song, to do that again, to give it another chance. Because I think it's a magnificent song. I mean, the words, the lyrics to the song are extraordinary. They're so poetic, and they're so abstract, and absolutely perfect. You know, just a perfect sort of vehicle for me to interpret. It's a really quaint story attached to White Shade of Pale for me. I'm really particularly attached to this fantastic song, extraordinary song. And that is that when I entered the age of puberty, we were actually able to have a very first party with boys. I went to an all-girls school, and boys were completely a baffling area for me. I mean, it's a sort of completely no-go area for me. So by the age of about 14, they became of much more consolidated interest. And there was this party arranged between the class that I was in and another sort of equally spotty, equally sort of inept class of boys that came together in a hotel room. And I remember the dress I wore, I remember the whole thing very clearly. But there was a record player there, and while the boys and the girls were liberally getting acquainted, I had somehow been assigned the task of playing the one moderately hip record, well, the hip record that anybody had, which happened to be A Whiter Shade of Pale. And I sort of, once we got to the end of it, I just had to keep putting the needle back. And that was my job for the night, just sort of putting the needle back on Whiter Shade of Pale as it went round and round and round. And these children, what did they know? This was the days of pre-sex, never mind safe sex, it was pre-sex. Actually, in the 70s, in the early 70s, I actually did have a Paul Simon record, it was Kodachrome. And I do rate Paul Simon as being one of the most exceptional songwriters of the century. There's no question about that. The man is just extraordinary. And you realise that when you start to analyse the chordal structure and analyse the way that it fits with the lyrics, with the melody, everything. They're just supremely gifted, supremely talented man. And this is a wonderful, wonderful song. And I hope that I've done a half-decent version of it. I mean, you know, when it comes to Bob Marley, I had always thought, well, you know, white girl from Scotland, what on earth? I have no right to sing this song. But then again, has to be said, trite though it may be, that music does transcend colour and racism and all of those things, and that Bob Marley's music has touched part of me, which you could call the soul, you know. It's really conversed with my soul deeply. I adore Bob Marley's music most profoundly, and so therefore I thought, well, soul has no colour and it doesn't matter. I think I can do this, you see. I had a vision in my head, actually, a sort of story that ran through my mind, and with the help of modern technology, camera, light, makeup, hair, costume, and lots of people who came to that wonderful 2 days where we shot in this theatre, we were able to bring a particular story together. And there's a great deal of imagery. Actually, to be frank, the imagery was taken from, or inspired from, Toulouse-Lautrec tableau. And we were very inspired by the composition that Toulouse-Lautrec used. I mean, it's essentially, there's no great master plan to making this video. It was just really things that I've been attracted to, that I felt were appropriate. And looking back on it, there is some kind of, how can I say, there is some kind of logic, particular creative logic that runs through everything, but it's not a conscious logic, it's something that happens from the creative mind. This video, for me, and the song, the way I've interpreted it at least, is about the redundancy of romantic love, of the inability of human beings to actually communicate. But then again, you know, it's just a pop video. So it works, for me it works at a very deep level. For me all the symbology is there to be seen, to be interpreted. If I start to go into it, it sounds ridiculous, but it's there. If it works just merely as an entertainment, something just to look at, something to listen to and to look at, then I'm very happy with it. But there are other levels that it's working at. I mean, each movement, everything, every element in that video has been thought about, not only for its visual content, but actually for its emotive content and for its psychological content. There is a sense of madness in the video. I mean, initially I had this wonderful notion of it being a brothel, or at least a secret club where people came to reveal their other selves. That when they step out into the so-called normal world, they will be conventional, probably bourgeois people with established characters and personalities. When they actually come into this space, they transform into perhaps their more real nature, perhaps it's more base, perhaps it's more animalistic, you know. And in this context of a woman singing with rather sort of kitsch-mannered gestures about love, actually the juxtaposition of this kind of scene where people are coming to have some sort of perhaps sexual contact, or they're coming to have some possibly sort of romantic contact, I don't really know. But these qualities of this notion of our love, human aspirations, it's very sentimental, actually very thin, very shallow, just these gestures. When we look into current day possibilities for people making contact, there's actually so much isolation. I mean, I feel that isolation, I feel that despair, I feel that inability to contact people. Therefore, a song like No More I Love You is perfectly suited to me, because I can genuinely interpret it. In the question of singing, all I have to do really is close my eyes, and then I focus into a place that is almost meditative. It's another language. So when you're working with other people, you have to be very confident that you can do that with very spontaneous ideas. A lot of them will sound absolutely dreadful, but if you're confident that it doesn't really matter, you won't be intimidated and you'll just do that. And the way that I work with Steve Lipson is that I put a lot of ideas his way just by getting into that space and by letting those spontaneous ideas come out. And then Steve sifts through all those ideas. Now, he may be a glutton for punishment, but that's his lot in life. And he's paid very well to do it. I must remind everybody that. I've never actually stopped to really analyse why the music that I've made or that Eurythmics made in the past was successful internationally. There's no way I can do that so objectively. It's so much part of me. It's really difficult to say. I mean, I guess I'd have to ask the people from the different countries what it was about the songs. But if I stopped to try to analyse it, perhaps the answers might lie in the fact that we always wrote very melodic songs. That mind you, it's not terribly easy to sing them all. I know they're fairly demanding. But there is a melody somewhere. Yes, and I know that sort of older people always say, oh yes, they like the songs because they can hear the lyrics. But I don't know if that's got anything to do with it either. I know that the songs that Eurythmics made and that I've made subsequently on my own have been very multi-layered, that there are a lot of things to listen to as well. They're quite textured. And perhaps they're very unusual. Perhaps there's something about the music that is quite independent of other movements that have been happening at the time. Perhaps it's a little bit more individualistic. And perhaps it stands out separately to the mainstream of music that, it doesn't fall easily into a category. It's not heavy metal, it's not rave, it's not, well, whatever, it's not that. But it's something of its own. And perhaps that's what it is, but it's really hard for me to be objective about it as well. I mean, the whole thing boils down to gut level response. If you lose that sense, then you've lost it all. And it's very easy to get out of focus of music. It's very easy to forget that it's a very meaningful and very potent force, which it is, very. But we get so accustomed to it. I mean, as a music maker, sometimes, and time again, I've asked myself, what am I doing? Because I can't see music. It's not something that's so tangible that it's around me. It's just something that I have to connect with. And if I forget to connect with it, i.e. listen to it or sing, then I sort of forget what it's about. So it's only when a wonderful song comes to my ears and my mind that I realise just how powerful it is. And it's a really spiritual force.